Hey, Lindsay, how's it going?
It's going great, Aubrey. What's going on in your world today?
Not too much. My kids are on spring break, so it's busy
Oh,
around here. What about you?
oh, yeah, it's going well. The sun is shining today. I'm heading to
Nice.
California this weekend and next week. So, all
Ooh,
good, all good. Yeah.
amazing. I love California. We go pretty often. It's a quick drive from here and lots of fun stuff
Yeah.
to do there.
Oh, for sure. Lots of sunshine and nice weather. So,
Yes. Mhm.
yeah. So, Aubrey, I have a question for you today.
All
Right?
right.
So, what do you do usually when someone says your name incorrectly? When they
Ooh.
mispronounce or say it wrong or say a different name? What do you
That's a
do?
good question. And as you can imagine, Lindsay, because you know that Audrey with a D is a
Mm,
very common name in the United States, but Aubrey with a B is much less common. In fact, not that long ago, it was a boy's name. In a lot of baby books, Aubrey is still a
mhm,
boy's name.
mhm.
So it's a more unique name, and I get Audrey a lot. But I
Yeah.
don't say anything if it's someone that I'm meeting for the first time, right? I'm picking up my
Yeah.
coffee or food and they say Audrey, I would never say anything. But if
Mhm.
it's someone that I know I will see again, I'm going to see them a lot, then I
Yeah.
will correct them. I'll just be like, oh, it's actually Aubrey.
Okay. So that's a good policy, right? It's not necessarily worth unless it's your neighborhood coffee shop and you're gonna see them every day. If it's just a one-time passing, don't bother, right?
Exactly.
Otherwise, it
Especially if you
does
get
make
it a
sense.
lot like I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I get Lizzie, and I don't like that at all. So I know what you mean,
So
but
that's an interesting question. If you get Lizzie and it's someone that you know you won't see again, would you say something or do
Mhm.
you just let it go?
I would probably just move on. It would probably be a
Yeah,
quick interaction, right?
for
And then
sure.
I would
It's
move
not worth
on.
it.
So this was inspired by a question from a listener, right? From Thelma.
Yes, exactly. Will you read the question for
Yes.
us, Lindsay?
Here you go. So she says, "Is it polite to correct the way that someone pronounces your name in their language?" Yeah.
Oh, this is such a good question. And there are a lot of things to think about, right? We're going to
Mhm.
go into them and we're going to give you really good phrases for how to do this politely and the intonation because it can
Mhm.
come across as like you can easily sound very annoyed or come across as rude depending on how you correct someone.
And there's a lot here today, guys. So listen
Yeah.
in, right? We're going to cover things like body language, even
Yeah.
intonation, timing of what you say, vocabulary you choose. It all creates or severs a connection, right?
Yes, absolutely. And be sure if you missed it, recently we talked about names in episode 2188 here on the All Ears English podcast. It was called Same Name, How to Connect Over This Commonality. Lindsay, you and Michelle had this conversation, right? Because this
Yeah.
happens too. Often you'll have the same name as someone else.
This was a great episode. And there's a lot of connection that can be had when that happens, right? And there are things you can say to just have a fun little connection moment or even start to get to know someone at that point over that moment of, oh, wow, we have the same name. So check out that
Yes.
episode. And Aubrey, what should our listeners do to not miss any of these episodes? They're
I
really
know if
good
you
this
missed that
yeah.
one, you might be missing other episodes. Be sure to hit follow so they drop right into your queue. We have
Yes.
5 episodes every week, and they're all amazing.
All right, good stuff. So hit that follow button wherever you listen. If you're on YouTube, you can just hit the subscribe button. Another great way to do it. These episodes all go on YouTube from the All Ears English podcast. All right, good.
For sure.
Okay.
So let's dive into this. The first thing is to think about, just like we were saying, who is this person? Is it someone you're never going to see again? Maybe it's not worth correcting them. But if it is someone who's going to be in your life, maybe a neighbor, a friend, even if, like you said, Lindsay, someone at the coffee shop where you go often, then it
Mhm.
is worth correcting them. English speakers want to be able to say your name correctly.
Oh my gosh, it's mortifying if you realize for years.
That
And
you've
then
been
you
saying it wrong.
if you don't
Yes.
correct if it is someone you think you have a hunch could be in your life in one way or the other, you should do it because you could get to a point where you haven't corrected them yet, so you feel like you can't now, right?
Right. And then one day they're going to hear someone else say it
Yeah.
correctly. They're
It's
gonna
not
find
gonna
out they
end
were
well.
wrong, and they will be so ashamed. They'll be mortified, like you said, that's
Right,
the best
right,
word
right,
for it.
right. You'll pass that point. I feel like there must be comedy skits or maybe a Seinfeld episode covering something like that. It
For
feels
sure.
like, the material for a comedy skit for sure.
Right. But also keep in mind that there may be sounds in your first language, there may be sounds in the way that your name is said where you live that make your name difficult to pronounce for English
Yeah.
speakers or from someone in another place. So you may need to give them a little grace, be understanding understanding. If they're coming close, which I do see that people do this a lot. I'll try to say their name and they'll be like, close enough. Good job. Awesome. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I can't reproduce the way they're saying it.
Right. And if they say that to you, then just move on because they might just be tired and exhausted from doing that over and over and they've tried before to get people to pronounce it correctly and it's hard. And so they might prefer just to move on, right? With what you've said. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Right? I would never say, "No, no, say it to me, like, let me
No,
try
no, no, no.
again." Oh, we're gonna let it
Yeah.
go because 'cause I'm doing my best, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
sick of people messing up your name, but you're also sick of trying to help people say your name correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So let them drive that, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So where do we go today then?
Yeah, so today we're going to share phrases that you can use to correct someone politely, and also what you should say if someone asks if they're saying your name correctly when they aren't. So
Mm.
just like you said, Lindsay, there's intonation, there's body language, there's a lot to think about. There's, do you go right into correcting them or do you need to say something first? So let's start with the first option here.
Yeah, and I really like this use of actually, right? We could say
Yes.
it's actually pronounced X, and then you give the correct pronunciation. Why do we like that actually, Aubrey? What does that do?
Yes, it's such a kind way to correct, right? You're letting them know
Yeah.
you're wrong and it's actually this, but in a very polite way. And we're going to do a little mini role play here. You're not going to want to lead with this, right? If someone's
Mhm.
introducing themselves, you're going to want to greet them, say something kind, and then you can say, "Oh, it's actually pronounced," and then just say your name the way that you pronounce it.
Right, and we'll show you how to do that right now. So let's go into a little role play, a mini role play for our listeners,
All right,
shall
you
we?
start us out, Lindsay.
All right, here we go. Hello, Genevieve. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Lindsay. It's actually pronounced Genevieve.
Oh, Genevieve. Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know.
No problem. This is a good example of a French name that does exist in English. It's quite rare, it's quite unique, but we pronounce it Genevieve. And
Mm.
so if someone came from France, they could either just accept the English pronunciation, Genevieve, or if they really prefer, which I actually do, the French
Me
pronunciation of
too.
Genevieve, absolutely correct people, insist on Genevieve. This is a polite way to do that. You are allowed to ask for
Yes.
someone to pronounce it the way you pronounce it in your home country.
Of course, you have that right 100%, and it is
Absolutely.
more beautiful in French. That's my
I
opinion
know. I
too, I have to
agree.
say.
I agree. So do it. Ask it, correct them, but in a polite way. Notice in the role play, it would have been awkward if you say, "Hello, Genevieve, nice to meet you." And I immediately say, "It's actually pronounced Genevieve,"
Oh my
especially
gosh, yeah.
depending on my intonation. If I sound annoyed, if I sound frustrated, you have to be careful here.
Well, there are 2 things that I think you did well before saying it's actually pronounced Genevieve. You said, "Nice to meet you," and then you said my name, which is another bonus, another way to build a connection. So you said, "Nice to meet you," you put something there, and then you said my name.
Yes. Nice to meet you, Lindsay. That's such a good point, right? This you feel cared for. You feel like, oh,
Cared
she
for.
knows my name. She's saying correct. And then probably felt very natural and not at all rude for me to say, oh, it's actually pronounced Genevieve.
100%. I love that. All right, let's move into the second thing that we can do, Aubrey. So, what is it?
Yeah, our second phrase is to say, my name has a unique pronunciation. It's actually, again, we use actually because we're correcting, letting them know the way they said it was incorrect. And I
Yeah.
love this, especially if your name is difficult to pronounce in English, giving them
Mhm.
that grace, recognizing, I understand why you've pronounced it incorrectly. Everyone does, right? You're
Right.
taking away the shame they might feel, the embarrassment they could possibly feel.
Yeah, I agree. And you could maybe swap in some other words like tricky, right? So other things we can do. But I like the idea of
Exactly.
saying, this is not easy, right? This is different. Something is different here. You're
Right.
calling that
My
out
name's
for
a
them.
bit tricky. My name's a little unique. Absolutely. Lots of ways to say this. And then it's actually, and say it the way you would like them to try to say it.
Yes. Here we go. Let's do another role play to show this.
All right. I'll start us out. Elizabeth, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Oh, happy to be here. My name is actually pronounced Elizabeth.
My apologies, Elizabeth. Thank you for telling me.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
intentionally used a name here that this is very close, right? We just have the difference of the TH in English,
Mhm.
but a lot of names are like this, where it'll end with like a T sound. And we'll anglicize it, and we're adding that th because we're used to the name Elizabeth. This is the
Right.
name that we have in English, right? But
Yeah.
if that might be your pet peeve to hear your name anglicized that way, it's absolutely your right to
I
ask
see.
them to say it correctly. I would much prefer that you correct me. Let me know how you would like me to say it. 100%. I have no problem with that. Just have to say it politely.
Yeah, because as we said before, it might be a little uncomfortable in the beginning, but you're saving face in the long run for that person, right?
Exactly. Yes. And
Yeah.
same here. You said, "Thank you. Happy to be here," before you use our phrase, "Oh, my name is actually pronounced Elizabeth."
Mm.
Whereas if you dove right in with that, it would feel pretty abrupt or blunt.
So we're using that same strategy, which is delay a little bit with a positive comment and then give the correction.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Lead with something positive. And so this is our pro tip, right? For both these role plays, look at what is said before the phrase we taught. Don't dive
Mhm.
right in with, "Actually, my name is pronounced like this," or they will feel embarrassed. They will feel just much more regretful. Whereas if you do it this way, couched with like a "happy to meet you, nice to meet you too, Lindsay," then it just doesn't feel so harsh.
Yeah, that's another interesting connection strategy for our listeners today, right? What do we say? How do we delay just a half a second by saying something else, not just in the name scenario, but other scenarios where you're giving some kind of awkward feedback or response? What are the things we can do to soften the blow, right?
Yes, exactly. And then we promise to share this because I know often I get asked, or I ask our students often, right? Am I saying your name correctly? And we want to give you some phrases to say here because often our students will say, like, "close enough," or "that's fine," and it's
Mm.
clear to me that I'm not, but they either don't have the phrase to let me know that, or they're not
Uh,
sure if they should. And of course,
mm.
this is up to you, right? What do you feel comfortable with? What is the relationship? But I'm letting you know the native speakers I know would love to be pronouncing your name the way you like to hear it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And we have, there may be some cultural differences there around correcting a teacher, right? I know in some
True.
cultures there might be not as much an accepting thing to be correcting a teacher, right? But certainly in the culture in which we exist here in American culture, online teaching, it's more than fine, and you should, please do if you want it to be corrected, please do,
Yes,
right,
that's such a
Aubrey?
great point. In our community, we want to make sure we are saying your names correctly. So we have a couple things you could say. The first one I love is just to say, let's do this as a role play. Lindsay,
Okay,
if I say, "Am I saying your name correctly?" How could you respond?
I could say, oh, close. It's actually Mikkel.
Nice. And then let's do another one. Am I
Uh,
saying your name
yeah,
correctly?
not quite. It's a little tricky in English. It's Mikkel. Okay.
Nice. I love both of these because you're not just saying, "No, it's Mikal," right? It's such a nice way to say it, like, "Oh, close," or "Not quite, it's a little tricky in English." Again, giving them that grace of recognizing, like, this is not an easy name to say, or it's
Mm.
different in English.
Yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway I wanna leave our listeners with today is how important this is because this hopefully is happening early on in a relationship, right? And so
Ideally,
yeah.
yes. Mhm.
We wanna make sure that we take it's the time when the connection is the most fragile. Is it gonna happen? Is it gonna flourish into some kind of a nice connection, or is it going to be a little hostile and awkward and feel cold? It
Right.
matters more at the beginning than later on when we know the person, right?
And think about the message that you're sending to native English speakers. If you correct them and let them know your name in this kind way, you're letting them know, "I plan to get to know you better. I plan for this to be an important connection to me. It's worth it to me to let you know, how I like my name to be said."
Well, it shows so much confidence, right?
Yeah, that too.
So much confidence to be able to do that and to know, like you said, to know it's I'm worth it. To be sending a message
Right.
to the world to say, I am worth you correcting and spending a little bit more
Absolutely.
time learning how to say my name. That
I'm
shows
worth it and our
massive.
connection is worth it, right? We're going to get
Yes.
to know each other, so we should know each other's names and say
Yes.
them correctly.
I love it. I think that's a great way to leave it today for today's episode. So go for it, guys. You've been given the strategies, the tactics. We forgot to mention body language, but I think it definitely plays in with the strategy of delaying a little bit by saying something nice. It's also body language. There's a lot that we say with our bodies. Aubrey is.
Absolutely. It goes right along with that intonation, right? Are you opening up? And if you are, like you said, Lindsay, a lot of the confidence is going to automatically happen in your body language. That confidence shows when you're like, it's actually this. And we're not closing in to say,
Right.
like, it's fine, no problem. However you say it is
Or
fine.
we're not crossing our arms and saying,
Right.
"Actually." Right, no, love it. All right, good stuff. Guys, if you love our style, we look at how you can connect in any given moment using English. Even if you're making a mistake, you can still connect. And that's our philosophy. That's what we believe in. That's what we focus on here at Allers English. So hit that follow button, right, Aubrey?
Yes, absolutely. Awesome, Lindsay. Thanks for joining me today.
All right, great stuff. I'll talk to you soon. Have a
You
good day.
too.
All right,
Bye.
bye.